and communication strategy, and that's at page 25 of the agenda. So members will recall at the previous meeting we were minded to refer the communication strategy to full council for a decision. To do that requires advice from the monitoring officer that agrees the item has breached the agreed policy framework of the council. The advice in front of us this evening is that the strategy, though we might disagree with certain elements of it, doesn't breach any elements of the policy framework, and therefore the option to refer this to the full council cannot be advanced. You'll recall that a key element of the arguments last time was concern over the threat of derecognition. In the period since the last meeting, the Director of Strategy, Communications and Customer Services has provided a potential redraft which can be found on page 27 at paragraph 3.2 to 3.4. This aims to deal with those concerns raised, and it's suggested that the committee consider whether we are satisfied with the alternative wording offered. I believe the changes go a very long way to allaying concerns, and I will be open to comments. I'll open comments in a moment for members to discuss this. It should be said, though, that we're not here to rerun the original call-in meeting, but to decide on the appropriate next steps for the outcome of the call-in. And the committee must decide whether it wishes to reject the call-in or refer it to the Cabinet for reconsideration in line with the advice that we've received and the possible alternative wording which has been provided. So I will open if any members wish to comment on this.
I would say I'm still not happy with it, because since we were here having this last meeting, the council's own comms team was sending out press releases that failed the council's comms strategy. There was blatantly in headlines claiming the whole council was united in the last full council meeting, which is nonsense. People, including myself, voted the other way. So quite frankly, I've got no faith in a document that the own council's comms team can't follow. Why should they expect any member of the public or media to follow it? And it's just laughable.
Does any other member wish to speak? Councillor Kerrin?
I have sympathy for Councillor Duffin's view, but in light of the advice from the monitoring officer, there isn't really any other avenue we can go other than to refer it to Cabinet. If that was the view of the committee, I'd be happy to support it going to Cabinet, but in light of the advice of the monitoring officer as well.
Thank you. Councillor Maney?
Well, it's an observation again, really. I mean, I have to say, I think it's very embarrassing that, we debated this at length and it's come to this stage. I mean, I'm surprised it's gone through that entire process before someone's picked up on the fact that this committee has gone beyond its jurisdiction. I think it's embarrassing on this committee, quite frankly. I, at the last meeting, said it should be referred back to Cabinet, so I haven't changed my mind. I kind of think the ship's sailed and our cargo's rotting on the quayside. I'm not sure Cabinet really are going to take much note of us having stuffed it up in the first place, but I can't say I've changed my mind. For what it's worth, send it back to Cabinet. I think they've, to be honest, while we've been tripping over the process, I think they're already well ahead of us, and they've looked at this already. So, I mean, we have to do something to save face. So, refer it back to them. The concerns of the committee are still the same, I guess. We're not here to, as you say, look at the call-in again. But it is very embarrassing that this has had to come back, and there's been a lot of wasted time. As I say, to save face, we have to do something. So I think we have to refer it back to Cabinet. But I think they've already well and truly considered it. Why we're differing, really. I'm just interested to know really how we've got to this stage. The monitoring officer has looked at this at a very late stage. We should have known really well before now that, as I say, we spent so long debating it, and all the time we were, voting to do something we legally couldn't do. So it's bizarre, and I just hope this kind of thing doesn't happen again, because when you're trying to say to Cabinet, have regard for the scrutiny process, it rather flies back in our face when we do something like this. So I just hope that in the future, we get this kind of advice before and not now.
Thank you, Councillor Maney. And I know I wouldn't want to speak for the monitoring officer, but I think there are some elements of recognition in that point, and in terms of how advice is made available to the committee in a more timely way in reaction to arguments that are being advanced in front of it. Okay. It feels then from the committee that the consensus feels like we would refer the recommendation to Cabinet for reconsideration, and further that it feels like there is consensus that we would recommend in line with the alternative wording that's set out at paragraphs 3.2 to 3.4. Does the committee agree with that? Okay, those in favour? And those against? Thank you. That's referred to Cabinet.